Do you remember when the British High Street truly felt alive? When shopping wasn't just a click on a screen, but a real afternoon out with family or friends? I certainly do. I remember the anticipation, the bustling crowds, and the distinct smell of each shop. We all had our favorites, didn't we? The go-to place for school shoes, a special birthday present, or that brand new television. Today we're going to take a long, warm, nostalgic look back. A trip down memory lane to revisit some of the iconic stores we've sadly lost. The ones that truly shaped our childhoods, our family routines, and countless Saturday afternoons. These weren't just places to buy things. They were part of our lives. They were part of our Britain. Let's remember them together. First up, C&A. Now you might hear that name and think, but isn't C&A still around? And you'd be right. It's still huge in Europe, but for us here in Britain, it vanished completely, leaving only memories for those of us who shopped there. Back in the day, C&A was the reliable choice for the whole family. Parents, like mine, loved it because it was affordable and wonderfully practical. You could pick up a smart coat for dad, a new school dress for the kids, and something sensible for mum, all under one roof. Their stores always felt big and bright, often spread over several floors. I remember those endless racks of clothing, the tidy displays of cardigans, jackets, and trousers. It wasn't fancy, not designer by any means, but it felt utterly dependable. And who could forget the changing rooms? Those squeaky curtains and that slightly odd lighting that somehow made every color look different. But fashion retail, as we all know, changed at lightning speed. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, C&A in the UK just seemed a little dated. Newer competitors like H&M and Zara offered trendier styles at similar prices, and suddenly, supermarkets were selling clothes cheaper than ever. Young people wanted fast fashion, not basics, and C&A management realized they simply couldn't keep up. In 2000, they announced their complete UK exit, and by 2001, all the stores were closed. For many of us, it was a real shock, the sudden end of a familiar stop on the high street. While C&A still thrives in Europe, here in the UK, it's just something parents and grandparents remember, often saying, "We'll just pop into C&A for that," a phrase now, sadly, lost to time. If there was one department store that truly, deeply felt British, it simply had to be BHS. For generations, it was the go-to for affordable clothes and homeware. School uniforms, tights, dressing gowns, bedding, curtains, even table lamps, all in one place. And many stores, as I recall, had their own cozy cafe with simple meals and endless cups of tea. Walking through BHS felt like a ritual. I remember as a child hiding in the clothing racks while my parents browsed, or later watching couples look at duvet covers, gently arguing over patterns. BHS was founded in 1928 and, at its peak, had nearly 200 stores. But times, as always, changed. By the 2000s, BHS had, perhaps, lost its spark. Competitors modernized faster. Marks & Spencer dominated the middle market, and IKEA offered cheap but stylish homeware. BHS's image just grew stale. And worse, it was burdened with massive pension debts after years of problematic ownership changes. When Sir Philip Green sold it for just £1 in 2015, many of us sensed it was the beginning of the end. By 2016, BHS was in administration. All stores closed, tens of thousands lost their jobs, and those huge, once bustling department stores in city centres sat empty or were chopped up for other uses. For many families, it was a real loss. BHS wasn't just a shop, it was a piece of our everyday routine, a meeting point, a quiet comfort on the high street. For anyone who grew up in Britain before the 2010s, Barretts was, without a doubt, the place for school shoes. It was almost a rite of passage, wasn't it? Going in before September, getting your feet measured with that cold metal slide, I can still feel it. And then the inevitable argument about which pair you really wanted. Barretts didn't just do school shoes, of course. There were party shoes, sensible work shoes, and those essential ankle boots for winter. They offered style on a budget, with regular sales that parents like mine truly relied on. The shops themselves were everywhere, from big high street stores to concessions in shopping centers. Staff were often friendly, recommending polish or extra insoles. But the world of shoe retail became, well, brutal. Supermarkets started selling kids' shoes dirt cheap. Fast fashion giants stocked trendy pairs for a fraction of the price. And then online retailers made it so easy to get anything delivered the very next day. Barretts tried to keep up, but they went into administration several times. In 2009, then again in 2013. Each time, the company shrank, closing more stores. Finally, the brand all but disappeared from our high streets. Now, those childhood visits to pick out back-to-school shoes are just a memory for many of us. And seeing an old Barretts sign somewhere, it truly feels like finding a ghost of retail past. If you want one brand that defined an entire experience for a generation, it's Blockbuster. Friday or Saturday nights in the 90s and early 2000s meant one glorious thing: heading to Blockbuster. You'd walk in and immediately be hit by that distinctive smell, a mix of plastic DVD cases and popcorn. Walls lined with the latest releases, shelves of classics, family films, and yes, even the horror movies you weren't really supposed to watch. Choosing a film was half the fun, wasn't it? I remember the specific rituals: rushing to get the new release before it sold out, turning the case around to check for the available label, or begging my parents for just one more film or a game rental. Blockbuster wasn't just about renting movies. It was a social outing, a cheap date, a treat after a long week. But then, streaming killed it. Netflix, which started as a postal DVD service, went online. Amazon Prime followed. Suddenly, you didn't have to go out at all. Blockbuster tried to launch its own online service, but it was simply too late and too slow. In the UK, Blockbuster went into administration in 2013. Stores closed one by one. The iconic blue and yellow signs disappeared from our towns. For kids who grew up in that era, myself included, it felt like losing a small adventure. Because it wasn't just about watching movies, it was about choosing them together. Need a washing machine? A new TV? A tumble dryer? For decades, Comet was simply the answer. Comet was one of the big names in British electrical retail, with massive stores full of white goods, televisions, stereos, and all the accessories you could possibly want. Staff in branded polo shirts, massive stacks of boxed-up microwaves. It felt a bit industrial, but incredibly reliable. Part of the experience was walking through row after row of giant TVs, all playing the same demo loop, or, if you were anything like me, checking out washing machines by slamming the door shut. But Comet faced growing problems. Argos offered cheap home delivery, Currys and PC World competed fiercely, and then online retailers undercut everyone, letting you get the same fridge delivered cheaper without ever leaving home. Private equity owners added to the trouble by loading the company with debt and cutting costs instead of investing in stores. By 2012, Comet went under. Nearly 240 stores closed. Many of us still remember those big orange signs and the sense of going on a proper shop for appliances, something that feels much less personal now. Not all vanished brands sold clothes or gadgets, did they? Safeway was once a true giant of the British supermarket scene. It came to the UK from America in the 1960s, offering a fresh, modern take on grocery shopping. By the 90s, it had hundreds of stores. It was known for quality produce, big bakery sections, and in some places, that slightly American branding that made it feel just a little bit different. Families did their weekly shop there. I certainly remember riding in those trolleys with wobbly wheels, pestering my parents for sweets at the checkout. But the UK supermarket wars were fierce. Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, and even Lidl and Aldi squeezed margins and slashed prices. Safeway simply couldn't keep up. In 2004, Morrisons bought Safeway, and nearly all stores were rebranded. The name disappeared overnight. A quiet end for a once dominant name. If there's one name that truly sums up the loss of our big British department stores, it has to be Debenhams. This wasn't just a shop. It was an experience, wasn't it? Multi-story city centre stores with vibrant makeup counters, free perfume samples, always a treat, endless racks of clothes for every budget, homeware sections with toasters and towels, and almost always somewhere, a cafe. Families remember going in to get a formal outfit, a new school coat, or a special wedding gift. Teenagers, like I once was, would browse jeans and shoes while parents sat with a well-earned cup of tea. In 2020, it went into administration for the last time. By 2021, all UK stores closed. Although the brand lives on as an online shop, those big, imposing Debenhams buildings are gone from our high streets or repurposed. For many of us, it was the end of a very familiar part of almost every British town centre. Before Sports Direct conquered the market, JJB Sports was, for many, the undisputed king of sports retail. I remember walking past rows of football boots, racks of replica shirts, and walls of trainers. For kids joining a team, JJB was the essential stop for shin pads and boots. It was especially big in the north of England, with its roots firmly in Wigan. But JJB expanded too fast, borrowing heavily. When the recession hit, sales dropped sharply. Competition from Sports Direct hurt them badly. Attempts to restructure failed. In 2012, JJB went into administration. Sports Direct picked over some stores and stock, but the brand itself, that iconic name, disappeared. It was the end of a very specific kind of shop, the community sports store where kids dreamed of being the next Beckham. Finally, let's talk about the Gadget Shop. What a fantastic place. It was arguably the most fun window on the high street, a real magnet for kids and adults alike. Lava lamps, novelty clocks, remote control cars, joke gifts, silly keyring. The displays were always designed to stop you in your tracks. Every Christmas, I remember it being absolutely packed. You'd go in just for a Secret Santa idea and come out with half the shop, wouldn't you? But novelty retail, as we found, is fickle. Online shopping offered the same stuff cheaper, and rivals like Menkind quickly grabbed the market. The Gadget Shop struggled financially and went into administration in 2005. Some stores became part of other chains, but the original name itself faded away. These weren't just places to buy things, were they? They were part of growing up, part of family weekends, part of the high street we all knew and loved. Losing them changed more than just shopping. It changed our towns, our habits, our memories. But remembering them keeps them alive, in a way. If you shopped at any of these iconic British stores, please do tell us your own memories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And if you'd like more trips down memory lane, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.